And welcome to Coding Wizards. My name is Akash Sharma. I have 7 years of experience in Android and Flutter development, and this is my portfolio. You can check this. Links will be in the description. So today we are continuing our Flutter course. So today we will start with the Dart basics. Basically, we will learn about Dart, how we can create variables, classes, functions, etc. So best I will teach the best practices that we can follow alongside the coding knowledge for the Flutter. So let's start. So here whenever we create a Flutter app, we get this method main, which is an entry point for the Dart program. So in each file we can define a main method like here we have one, but in the when we click this button, this file whatever it is selected here, it will be executed. So this will not be executed in this file. So if you want to select this one, so we click this play button and it will be selected here and it will run accordingly. But if we are not like in this method, we have run app which binds the widget to the Flutter app. So in this method we don't have that, so it won't show any output on the screen, but this prints will be printed in the comment section, in logcat. So here this is the entry point, this is for the binding, because this thing is widget, my app. So it is a stateless widget. So it is stateless or stateful, we can pass any widget to this, but we need to pass something like material or Cupertino, because ultimately we want to look and feel of either for the Android side material or for the iOS side Cupertino. So we can use any of them. So this binds this widget to the screen whenever app gets executed. So for this session purpose, we have created another file, so added a main method, because we are going to see some basic things like creating variables, how can we use them, and what are the concepts behind them, how memory is allocated, so kind of thing. So we don't need the CUI, so I am using this method. So here this is the import section on the top of the file, where we define whatever packages we want to, packages libraries we want to import inside this file. So here we are on the main entry, and we added a 3 print statement and calling a function. So let's start with the basic variables. So there are 2 ways to define a variable, like final and where. These are the 2 basic things that we can use to define a variable, like final abc is equal to, or where 1 is equal to 1. So this is the integer variable. If we hover on this, it will show the type that it is integer type. Same thing we can use the const for, const where 2 is equal to 2. So this is the integer also. So both these things are final and const. So main basic difference that is asked in the Flutter interviews, what is the difference between final and const, because both are the constant values, both are like const is also implicitly final. We cannot reassign this also. So what is the difference? So difference is in the where in the const we cannot do something like abc dot to uppercase like this. It won't allow it, because the uppercase method is executed on the runtime. It returns value at the runtime, but const is compile time constant. We need to define some value here that is constant at the compile time. We don't have to calculate it. So uppercase function is calculating the value, so it won't allow it. So if we hover on this, methods cannot be invoked in the constant expression. So that is one difference. So if we assign same value to this variable, it will be fine, it has no problem, because value is being assigned only once. We are not assigning like where 1 is equal to xyz, because this is also not allowed, because where is final variable where 1 can only be set once, so we cannot reassign this, we cannot reassign on where 2 also. So this is the main basic difference, that final is runtime constant. We cannot assign some value that need some CPU to be like calculated value or functions or anything like that, but we can do like multiplication normal, 2 into 2, sorry, 2 into 2, this is fine, because this is also a constant expression, we can say. So it is allowed in final also and in const also, because it won't be any error, there won't be any error. So simple rule of thumb, we cannot call functions, because functions are like they are also objects in the Flutter, in the Dart. Everything that can be assigned to a variable is a object, and and all the objects are instance of the class, because ultimately the objects are created out by calling the class constructor. So everything is object in the Dart. Objects are instance of class, except like null is also an object, but it is not inheriting from the object class. So inheritance and all the things we will learn. So this is the first thing. Another thing is, if we want to create some mutable variables, like we want to reassign some values, so for those we can use my name like this. We can create a variable that can be reassigned with the var typeface. abc is equal to extra name, like this. We have reassigned this variable, but we are not reassigning this. So simple rule of thumb, final can have function calls as well, and calculated like static expressions. Const can have static expression that will be calculated at runtime, but static expression must be constant at the compile time. So this is like 2 into 2, we are not accessing some variable to multiply. Simply if we add it here, and like this one num, if we do this, it won't allow it, because number can be modified and const variable must be initialized with a constant value. So constant needs some value that is determined on the compile time, like its multiplication is 4, we know that, the compiler knows that, because numbers, multiplication operations, everything is stored in the compiler, so it will determine the value on the compile time. But if we call some variable or function which is like, so call some variable which is not const, like make it const, it is fine, because it is also a constant value. So it will be like in the place of this variable, compiler will determine this, so we'll assign the value. So final can accept functions, calculated values, reference variables also, but must be initialized only once. Const cannot take functions and another non const variable as a value. So this is for the basics. Two types constant, one is final, another one is const. For the non constant we have var, and we have object also, xyz is equal to some name. Actually let me list all the possible ways how we can create something. A string var abc, then we have dynamic, dynamic dvar is equal to something, then we have let's make the values also same so that we get better understanding. Let's place it here. Okay, then we can assign any value to all of these because these are mutable values, except the final and const, or everything can be assigned to any variable, like all these type. Like in place of this we can have integer, double, float numbers, or num also, because in the Dart we have num data type also. Like we make this one, and we can assign a number or a double number. Both are valid argument for this. So this creates a string variable, because whatever value you will assign to this variable, it will determine its type, its own, like inferred type. It is called inferred. So the type of this ABC is string, because we are not defining the type on this side, but we are assigning the value, so it determines the value based data type based on value assigned. So this is one way. Another way, we can directly assign define the type also, assign the value also, so it is also valid. Another way is creating a string is we can use object xyz. We can use also dynamic. All these things are fine, but where and how we can use this? Rule of thumb, always use where you are assigning the value directly, because inferred type are always good. The whatever type is your type of value you are giving, the variables type will be the same. These cases where we actually need to define the data type is when we want something sure, like out of a function, and here we call some function, we don't know what value it will return until we see the function implementation, what value it returns. So on those places we can define the data type. For the object and dynamic, these are two things that can store any data type, because this is fixed. Once we have created these variables with these two type, we cannot change its data type at runtime, at compile time also, because it won't allow. Its data type is string, it accepts only strings. Similarly for this also, if we place this one, it also won't allow it, because it needs a string value. We cannot assign integer to these two variables, because these are, its type is string, both are. Similarly, if we have some variable with like 1 and 1, so cannot assign a string to it, like we cannot assign a string to a int variable. So this is the difference. Once we have assigned a value, its data type is fixed, but with these two things it is not the case. Like if we have xyz and we are assigning it a number, it is fine. Similarly, if we have dynamic var is equal to some number, it is fine, because both are dynamic types. Let's say they don't store the type of variable, the type of value we are assigning. They assign they hold the value. So we can we have initialized with string, we are changing to number, then again we can assign it a map or a list of 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. So like this, it is also fine. Same case is with dvar, but there is a catch. So when which like out of these two, which one can be used on which place? Like if we want to access something in this. Like let's say we know that this is a integer, we do a multiplication. Okay, so create a new variable, sum is equal to this plus this. So it is saying that we cannot do this because xyz is object, but if we do this with dvar, it is fine, it has no problem at all, because its type is not stored with it, like it doesn't show that, it doesn't have the type. But both the difference between it, whenever we will use this, it wants compile time type checking, like what type it is. Like if we want to perform some operation on this, we need to do like this, as int we are casting its type, then it will allow the operation. So always use object whenever you want like dynamic typing, like you want to assign a multiple type of value to xyz, because with this we don't get the errors on the compile time, because whenever we will run this program, it will crash on this line, because it is on, if we remove these things or we have this thing, because ultimately we have the list of integers inside this. If we add +2, it will crash because this is not a number, it is a list, it stores a list. Similarly, if we have like this, it has a string, it doesn't have an integer value, so will not succeed. But in object case, we cannot do operation without the typecasting, like it won't allow it. But if you want to print something or do two string thing, it will help, it will allow, like print xyz like this and dvar like this. It has no problem, because we are not accessing anything, just calling toString on this. Like every class has toString function, so whatever value it will hold, it will call toString and return the value inside in the form of a string. So it has all the things, all the variables, because I told you earlier that whatever you can assign in a variable, it is a object, and object are instances of the class, and every class has toString function. Even if it don't, compiler will generate it. So this is the thing with this. So be sure to get the errors at the compile time. Don't write any code that may break on the runtime, like dynamic variables can break at runtime. We don't know what exactly it stores. Like I have seen some people do assign some variables like dynamic user data is equal to some user data model, user data like this, and we pass some values inside this. So let's say we have some user data model and it has 3 parameters like first name, last name and email, like this. Okay, then they are using it like user data dot first name like this. It won't show any error because its type is dynamic. Even if you miss the spelling, like instead of name we have written the misspelled it, it won't show any error, and it will crash at runtime that first name property does not exist for this object. So it will be like this. So there might be some cases where we can risk using the dynamic. So whenever you are aware of the risk and you cannot use object, then only you should use dynamic. Instead, anywhere you are not sure about the type, use object. Like in case of when we create a data model class, there we have map, and whatever value we are getting from the server, we use from JSON to JSON functions to map the output inside a data class. So there we can use the dynamic, because ultimately whatever data is coming, we don't know what it is, so we create a functions to map the values manually. We check the type also. So in that case, use of dynamic is valid. In other cases, I will recommend use object if you are want to assign multiple data type values, and if you want to make it nullable, we can add this one. We will talk about it. So till now we have talked about final. Final is runtime constant. Final like this. Then we have const y is equal to 2. Then we have object and dynamic, these two types. Then we have other data type like string, integer, numbers, etc. Those are core data types that every programming language has. So this is for this runtime constant, compile time constant. This is for restoring any data type, but difference is this checks the type at the compile time. This checks type of the data, which type of data is stored at the runtime. So make sure to be sure at the compile time rather than the getting errors at the runtime. And apart from this, Dart, like Google recommends using where whenever possible for declaring variables. Whenever we want to share about its type, we can use like this string var2 is equal to something like this. So for like integers, for integer we have integer var3, for double, number, bool, these are all the data types. We have list also, like list and map. So this is the list of integer. This is the map which stores key value pairs. Key is string, values are always be integer, so 1 1 2 2, so like this. These are all the type. There is one more set. This is the set where we have set of integers. We have difference between list and set, that set does not allow duplicate values, and it is showing a warning that two elements in a set shouldn't be equal, so we can remove that. Even if you add duplicate elements, when you check the actual elements in the side, this either calling for loop, for each, or the length, it will calculate only these three, it won't be calculated. So list and set holds unique values, list can hold any duplicate values, map will have always key value pairs, keys will be either integer, string, or any data type, values will be the same like integer, but the once we define the type, all the keys will be this type, all the values will be this type. So this is the function. Like if you want to have keys and values different, like dynamic, the kind of thing we use in the dynamic from JSON to JSON functions. So all the keys will be string, but value can be integer, float, number, or any other object like list kind of thing. So we use dynamic for that. So there we can use the dynamic, and we can also store a function inside a variable. So this is a variable, this is a type, data type, and this is a function parentheses with the params, like it has two parameters and this is its body. Instead of shorthand arrow functions, we can write this as this also, this one, like this, but we need to add a return statement so that it returns the value to whatever. Whenever we call this var9 dot call, we get the results inside a final result. So let's check its type. Its type is dynamic because we are not defining any type of this. So in these places we need to define the let's say we have two integers, we are saying getting the sum, we can define the type like integer. Whatever value it will return, it will be stored inside the. In these places we can define the type, otherwise we should use var or final. One more thing I just remembered, like if we have list, like let's assign it a list 1 2 3 and assign a list to the const also 1 2 3, and this is where catch is. If we add something in x, it is fine, but if add something in y, it won't show any error at the compile time, but it will throw exception that unmodifiable object, the object cannot be modified because it is a constant. So this line will fail because x is a constant, we cannot add. Y is also a final in some sense, but constant, whenever we define something constant, the value cannot be reassigned, means y cannot be reassigned again like some other value, or the same value again like 1 2 3 cannot be reassigned. Also we cannot change its property, like whatever object it's holding, we cannot add, remove, delete anything from that. Okay, but with the x we cannot do this, like we cannot assign it something, but we can change its internal properties, like we can add in a list, or if have like user object, let's say here we have a class named user data, we have this one, we have two properties, and let's see the magic. User data, its name is akash and age is 30 years, and we do same thing for y also. So it's saying the constructor being called isn't a const constructor, so for that we can make it const. Then we need to make them final. So this way we can create a const from a constructor, but now the fields are also final, we won't be able to change them. So let's go back to the non-final fields for now. So for the const we cannot reassign, we cannot also change its properties, because we define if constructor is const, then both the variables should be final, and if variables are also final, then its value cannot be, like whole object cannot be reassigned, and its internal properties cannot be also modified, because properties must be final to be, like if we want to make the constructor const. So that's why we cannot modify its property also. For the const, like final, if we have this and we say x dot name is equal to full name, like this, it is fine, it won't show any error and it will run successfully, there is no issue with this. So for the final we can not reassign the variable, but we can change objects internal like parameter like name, age whatever value is storing, we can change that. So this is one more difference between the final and const. So we are here declaring the function. So this is the way we can store a function inside another variable, in whole function inside a variable. So we have learned the basics of declaring the variable, like these are the type of variable, these are mutable, these are immutable. Whenever we can change the variable value, that will be mutable, because value can be reassigned. So let's move to the standard function. So this is a standard function where this is a return type. If we won't add any return type, it won't matter, because Dart has like typeface interface where return type is determined by the value being returned. So if nothing is returned, automatic its return type will be dynamic. So instead of that, we can always add a return type in a function, because we might want to we misunderstood the function. Let's say we have created some variable sum is equal to control flow. Okay, so it is not returning anything. So its value will be void. If we make it like integer, and it will show an error, but if we remove this, it won't show any error, but it is not returning any integer value. So it will fail on the runtime. So better return a value so that compiler knows what you are doing, what you want to do, so that it can show some errors, so will save your time. So this is how a function is defined. Here we have, if you want to add a parameter, like let's say we need two values, like first one is int a and int b. So in this also we can omit the type of the value that it will accept. It will become a dynamic type, both are the, but it is not a good practice. In functions, always pass a type of data that we want to get, always pass a type. So whenever you declare a variable, be sure about its type, whether it is a function parameter or a variable or a function returning something. So always be sure that it will save some critical bugs on the compile time. Otherwise you will get a lot of bugs on the runtime when you run the app actually. So if we pass something, like if we haven't defined something here and we pass a string inside this, it won't complain. It is saying okay, valid. But if we want to add some operation, like I showed you already, that we want to sum two values, sum is equal to a and b, it won't complain, because its type is dynamic. It will check the type at the runtime. But if we give its type on here, it won't work. We got the error on the compile time also. So better define the data type either by var and assign a value, a fixed value, whether string, integer, any value, or use a type like this, string. Okay, there is one more variable that like we can also declare a, like we have some var abc is equal to control, like do some abc dot to uppercase, like this. So its value also always be a string. But if we add late, what will be the impact of adding late here? because we have already assigned the value, we don't need late. But this is like standard late works like late where x y z, and we don't actually define the value here, we will initialize it later, x y z to some value like this. But this type is not defined here, like it has become a dynamic, so we better define the type. So we have defined that it is a string type, but we are not giving any value, we will initialize it lately, so we have initialized it. So this case we know already that in many languages, whenever we use, like in Kotlin there is late in it, we want to initialize it later, don't want to make it nullable. So for that it works. But what will happen with this? We have added the late but also assigned a value, so this will be like, until and unless this is accessed, this value will not be assigned to this. This is like lazy initialization. Suppose we have some critical, like heavy computation, like calculate heavy task, some function which calculates something or read some heavy file, and we don't want to, like whenever we open the screen, we, like in the main function here, we make it stateful, like st_full, and we have added it here and removed this part, so it has become a stateful. Now we have on init state here, init state, and we have some variable here like late some value and will be number, or simply for simplicity let's stick to the integer. And we have here some value is equal to calculate heavy task, like this. So this will not be initialized until and unless we use this value somewhere, like if we use this value here like this, then it will call this line, the getter, the setter. So late works in this sense also. So whenever we define something with late, it will initialize the value once whenever you use it for the first time. Like let's say we use it multiple times, whenever the line gets executed for the first time, the value will be initialized. If you never use this, like let's say we haven't used it anywhere, then this line won't get executed at any cost, like never. So this is the case with the late. So we have seen examples of all the variables also and the late case also. So let's go back here and let's say we want to make some variable nullable, like we have talked about the non-null values. Let's say we have where and abc is equal to string, so it is a mutable property, we can assign it another value, but we cannot assign it null value. It won't accept because it is not nullable. So if we want to make this variable nullable also, then we have option to string xyz is equal to, like if whenever we define something with like this question mark, we don't need to actually put the null here because default value is also null. So it is saying that value of the local variable isn't let's use this somewhere, so that we get the actual suggestion. That so it is saying redundant initialization to null because its default value is also null, so we shouldn't assign it any value. So in this case, let's say we want to assign it null, xyz is equal to null, so it is fine, it won't complain. So that's how we can make the variables nullable. So let's talk about the list because there are a lot of things with the list also. List is equal to 1 2 3. This is the simple list. Okay, let's say we have some different variable inside this list, because if we have same data type, it will assign list of integer. If we have a different variables inside this, it will assign list of objects. See, it is not assigning the dynamic type to it, because Dart is also suggesting that we shouldn't use dynamic whenever is like avoid using dynamic as far as possible. So it is using object. So let's say we want only integer values. So one case is list dot map, then we have some value, then we check is a, kind of like this, then a else null, like this. It will return only int, so it will return only either integer or null. So it will be the list of nullable integers, list of nullable int. So let's see the check the type of list. So it has iterable integer and question mark. So list of nullable integers. So if we call to list, it will convert it into the list of nullable integers. But this is not recommended at all. If we want some simply the type check, then because here we also getting this, otherwise we another case is we can add a for each and check the create another list and assign it value if it is an integer. Instead of that, let's where type, simply pass it that we want only integers. So now it is list of int only, iterable integer, and we call to list and it will become a list of integers. So simple, we don't have nulls also. So this is the recommended way where we want only certain type of data from the dynamic list, like which stores a different kind of data. So this is the standard way. Another thing is if we want to filter something, let's say we want where value is multiplication of 2, let's convert it to back to integer list. So this is how we can filter the, if it is we want all the even numbers, modulus 2 is equal to 0. So here we can add anything, like we are declaring a variable, we can add abc also. It is up to you, whatever name you want to assign, it has no problem. So better assign like more human readable name, like x or number or item kind of. So it will return list of some values, only 2 or 4 or 6, like that. Let's say we want to sum all these values, so we have reduce and fold. We have reduce and fold. So it will require two variables a and plus b. So let's say what value. So here we have sum, simple sum. This is fastest way to calculate the sum inside from a list. So this is the integer sum, so it holds only single value. So it works like it will first assign two variables to these two, then we have performed a sum operation, then this value will become this and next value will be inside the b variable. So like this, but it fails when there is no value inside this. Initially it starts with I think 0. Let's see the code. Here we have reduce the collection of single value iterating combining reduction. Yeah, so it starts with a 0 or a value. I think do we have default value? Okay, so it will starts with a 0, then whenever the next value we will give it, it will be assigned to this, and next element will go here. It works like this, but the list must not be empty to use the reduce function. The final like conclusion is this: if you are not sure about the list size, then better use fold, because here we can give it a default value. I think 0 is better. So here we have defined the default value. If there is nothing inside this, it will return 0. So the value will be, so fold is safe for where list can be empty. We use fold because it is a safer way to perform some operation on the list if it has any child or not. But if we are using reduce, then it will throw the exception that list cannot be empty. So this is the way. Similarly, we can find the max number also. Let's say we want to find max number from this list, so we can add like this: if a is greater than b, then return a, else b. So it will return all the one value which is max of all. Simply if we want to get the minimum, then instead of returning a, we can return b, and here we can add a. So it will become like minimum from this list, so it will return 1. So fold can be used anywhere where we want single value from the list. Let's say we want value which can be first value which can be divided by 2. So we can write divided by 2 is equal to 0, then return a. So it will return actually the last, here we have two numbers. Can we no, we in this case I think we cannot use this. We have to use some other DSA for that. Okay, so whenever we want to find a single value or sum or max, min kind of, we can use fold. When we are sure that list is not empty, we can use reduce, and we have also used the type checking. We can use the map function. Yeah, list dot, if you want to convert all the object into some other kind of type of object, so we can write simply this to a dot toString, or we want to multiply every object by 2, so like this. So it will return a list of integers. So we have performed an operation where we have modified the value, another list like this. It will multiply each value by 2 and assign it to this list. So it will also be list. Let's say we want the final value to be string, so we can add to string, so it will become the string. So like this. So I think in this lecture we have seen the variable declaration where and their type, also we have some exposure of functions also. We will more talk about now. Let's cover it in another video, it will be very long. So next video we will talk about how we can pass function as a parameter also. We have already seen how we can assign this function inside a parameter, assign a function inside a variable. In next lecture we will see different kind of use of functions. We have shorthand arrow functions, we have getter setter also, and we have function as a parameter also. We have extension functions also. So we'll talk these things about in next lecture. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching.